The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. Listening to the Court of Public Opinion, a very special edition. You know, this is kind of sweet because if I had any idea that I'd be here outside of Washington, D.C. doing a report, and the only Court of Public Opinion that's here are the squirrels and the birds. So, here we are. I'm so excited. President's Day is on Monday. It's a pretty unique way to do a report for the Court of Public Opinion. And I'm going to give you a bird's eye view. No pun intended. There's a bunch of birds here. But we're going to do a very unique episode of the Court of Public Opinion after this. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion. This is really, really a helpful segment because I don't find myself on either side of the issue. I actually have a lot to say about social justice, activism, and then some issues that actually maybe point to the way some people would categorize the right. Independently, though, because I think we can actually offer an independent view. I try not to take too many sides on this issue because I think that's why we created the Court of Public Opinion, because I don't think a lot of people find themselves on either or side of the issue. I think some people can actually support what some of the liberals are doing and what some of the conservatives do, and that's why we call ourselves the Court of Public Opinion, because we don't find ourselves in any of those categories. And I'm going to illustrate the point. A lot of us didn't ask to be categorized. Many of us have filled out applications before. Okay, and there's a section where it says, are you white, non-white, black, or other, or Hispanic? I don't have a questionnaire like that. I don't know about any of you, okay? So whoever groups people by their race, there you go. So, obviously, racism started somewhere. You're already being grouped in a class without even wanting to. So, I know there's a lot of people that would probably want to weigh in here at the Court of Public Opinion because you find yourself right there. It's like, yes, in fact, do you find yourself individually agreeing with a lot of progressive conservatives or independents? Well, I like to think that all of us maybe have some strong personal views and strong convictions, because you might find yourself in those categories, because out there in the political world, you have to be grouped by your political view, okay? Some of us don't want to be grouped in that, but I don't think you have much of a say in that because they already do that, as illustrated in the point that I made about filling out an application. You're already grouped whether you want to be or not. And not just to say that I support everything that conservatives do or what liberal progressives do, but I can find myself independently seeing how important some of the issues are to the liberal progressives. And that's to be fair. I have to be fair because I would be compelled to argue that if I were to throw everything under the bus just because of what you hold political view or your political party, then I'm missing the whole point. I want to go a step deeper. Same with the conservative issues. See, to me, there are some basic rights. There's basic human rights, life, the ability to have freedom to express it with respect that it doesn't endanger you or the other people around you. And some people will call that protesting, okay? And some people would define that as more extreme versions as rioting, or even go as far as anarchy. So I think if you take a political science class historically, people know the difference if you take the class and it's defined as, yes, political speech should be protected, but should it be protected in the case that it's going to do criminal damage or be a criminal matter? This is why I want to talk about the Dakota pipeline, because I do understand that there is a very important issue to the Native Americans, but it was the very chief on the Dakota pipeline who was upset with the protesters that came up there, leaving that place a devastating mess. Now, I was listening to On the Ground and a social justice activism on NPR, and I promise you this, they weren't talking about what was left over because of the protests. They were talking about the very same issue about the Dakota pipeline access. Arguably, the water can be contaminated. So there's a real important debate to be there, okay? I'm not debating that because I think that's the groundwater. When it's contaminated, you can't undo that, okay? So they have to offer alternatives and solutions. So they assume by putting up the pipeline that's not going to affect the water, but in which case, what happens if it does? So there's a chance that if they support the Dakota pipeline and the water supply and access to it would actually disturb the wildlife. And there is some points to that because we see a lot of wind farms, and this is not something I supported, but there's plenty of wind farms that have done more harm to the wildlife, okay? Like animals actually fly into that. So I know that not all animals do that, but there's a tendency to believe that if you put this stuff up, it will eventually cause some damage. There's a lot to weigh out here. But they are pushing the Dakota pipeline, and I can actually make a point to this. And if you've listened to my previous post about the Dakota pipeline, my ex-husband he worked on the pipeline on the on the water trucks. I do think there's something important there, okay, personally. Okay, I do. I think that there's obvious concerns about the pipeline and access and the wildlife and the possibility of contamination. I think it's a risk that a lot of people are very upset about. They don't want to see this actually have any interruptions in the wildlife, meaning they don't want this metal pipe in the middle of this beautiful land that, that so many people preserve it, for just because it's preservation. For the preservation of wildlife itself is valid, okay? But I definitely want to segue this topic about the right-left issue and the paradigm, because no one I know personally fits into a perfect political view, okay? I just don't know them. I know a lot of people have the same views, that share the same views across the board. We want to see our land protected. We want to see it preserved wildlife. I want to also see human life preserved. I want to see the quality of our human life experience to be improved, okay? No, I think Obamacare was a disaster because for the same reasons that the quality of life was not the same for the people that had it before. And not that the quality of life and the standards were better beforehand, but I definitely think that the quality of life is going to be based on what's going on politically now. The quality of Americans' lives are going to be dependent on not just jobs, but overall how we feel about our lives and where are we? Are we content with where we're at? I can honestly tell you, I don't think a lot of people really are content. They're very disturbed and troubled by things, okay? Do I say it's all political? Not really. I think your strong convictions matter. And if you get to the point where you stop forgetting what you value and you stop valuing what matters and you just dismiss it as nothing, what ends up happening is people become more unhappy. And it's mainly because many of us have ignored our strong convictions. And I'm not saying that your strong convictions are a reason to get up and do something, in the case of a lot of people would argue violent or nonviolent. We've argued that you don't want to get into a situation where it becomes criminal behavior, okay? And that's why we weighed out this issue here, because we do know, while it's important to have a debate, you can't cross the line and go do something criminal. And what we've seen on liberal Twitters, this Twitter tantrum, what what I see is they're actually encouraging people to get in trouble with the law. Okay, arguably, you can be angry, you cannot like what's going on, you can protest, but don't end up in jail over it. Meaning, don't cause yourself to end up in prison. And I'm not saying for protesting, for acting out violently and wording things in Twitter or Facebook or anywhere, where it gets to the point where you're actually endangering yourself and others. That's the line that's been crossed here. There's a lot of people, they're just not mature enough to even have a real political discussion. And I don't know that I know everything about politics. I hope I don't. I hope I never know too much. I hope I'm never too smart to not learn. I know there's a lot of things over my lifetime I hold important. I hold others' values and opinions important. But if they have a difference in opinion, does that mean that I don't like them? No, it might change my view on some things about them, but personally, it shouldn't change how I see the world or how I see them overall. I'll just disagree, and I might not want to share that discussion with them next time. Okay. But we have to be able to weigh out the evidence and support it with facts. And what's happening with this whole discussion about fake news is that you as a reporter or somebody that does reporting, you want to weigh out your information with facts. You want to see if there's a balanced argument. Can you support it with facts? Because anyone else I know that has a debate or wants to argue something or make a point, you have to support it with something. It brings validity to your point. And I think that's what's really been going on versus the fake news and very fake news. Okay, I think, are we fake people? Obviously not. Okay, but is the information fake? Well, hopefully that's the whole point, to weighing out information. And thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion, because that's our intention, is to weigh out the information and bring substance to the debate. Because a lot of people are out there that they want to argue something, but you got to have something of something to support what your argument's about. Like, I can say that I don't like Diet Coke anymore because, and I'll support it with facts, that more people lose weight than gain weight. Or, I'm sorry, more people lose weight from quitting than from drinking it. I mean, so I'm making an argument. We'll be back after this for more here at the Court of Public Opinion. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network. Okay, we're back here for the Court of Public Opinion. I've been discussing about just overall the worldview versus opinion pieces and news stories, and really what's been circulating, and overall how to get a better perspective. And it's almost like press and restart, because wherever you're at with certain things, you're going to have some attitudes, and maybe you have some real justifiable grievances. Trust me on this. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of justifiable disagreements. But talking about overall the opinions of other people and how it's formed and why people believe what they believe and where it's generated and how it's fed. A lot of people are pointing to media being one of the bigger culprits, but I can honestly tell you, unless you really believe everything people tell you, you're going to have your own view and opinion. You might relate to it, and there might be some similar views, but you as an individual have your own values and beliefs, and they're probably shared values with other people, but that doesn't overall group you into one group. And as I stated earlier, a lot of people are grouped not because of anything they did personally. They're not out there looking for giving you an application, having you check off whether you're Hispanic, non-Hispanic, or other on, just to have a conversation. And that's not what I experienced here in the field. And I had an opportunity to be in Washington, D.C., and I don't always see the same old, but I can see where people are often categorized and lumped together. And this included with the media. There's a lot of good media people that are being lumped in with a few very bad people that don't speak for all the media. I can say that firsthand. I know there's some really fascinating, intelligent individuals that I personally know that the media is not all a wash, okay? Just because you got a few really bad people in the media, and there might be more than a few, okay? Let's be honest. Okay, but we don't. How do we reflect our opinions? Well, I believe, and I personally think a lot of people share this belief, is that your opinions are formed at home. Do you respect the people in your own home? Do you respect the own people in your life? Because that opinion you have of other and the regard you have for others is going to reflect on how you behave out there. And there's too many people that are really ready to tell you or me how to think and feel about these things. I have regard for all people, okay? When it changes is when they don't have regard for myself or the people around me. And that respect is something that's taught at home. And a lot of people say, well, you ain't going to get enough respect. But truthfully, it's just not just sounding like a broken record, but respect does start at home. If you don't respect each other, if you don't respect your loved ones or your companion, how in the world am I going to expect you to respect what's going on out in the public view? And it's real easy to lose respect for others, okay? It's that's not the argument. The debate, though, about everyone else feels this way or thinks this way is simply untrue. I just simply don't see it. And even if you disagree with me, you can probably agree with me. It's just not a part of the everyday dialogue. It's not part of the discussion we have with people. We might even not even know their political views, and we just might like them as people. But to sit and assume that we group people by, categorizing them, ask them to do a checklist, what their religious views are, color, creed, and things like that. I don't know anyone that has a clipboard asking these personal questions about their personal beliefs. I can say, though, when you go to Washington, D.C., you could see people with signs, and you could go to the Dakota Access Pipeline. You can obviously see that there's people that support these issues. So they could be grouped by that, and that's obvious. I'm not going to dismiss the fact that there are people who hold very strong political views and are grouped by who they believe and what they believe in. Undeniably, it's part of the national discussion or conversation. We look at this from an overall view. And if I want to pick apart the debate, I would argue that a lot of people can make individual arguments for individual cases and on individual topics. But overall, I did not see that. I don't, like I said, I think a lot of people would agree with me. We don't ask you guys to fill out a checklist, what color, creed, race, color. I don't go into all that. And whether I disagree or agree with you, I don't do that. I don't know that any American does. Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion.